recognize the honourable member for Edmonton Beverly Clareview.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to begin by saying this is the first opportunity that I've had to speak to Bill 45. Still, as of yet, have not had an opportunity to speak to Bill 46. And so I think it's important to note a tactic or a technique that this government is using in order to stifle debate in this House and ram through legislation, which is a motion of closure. And I suspect that there'll be another motion coming through on Bill 45 shortly to ensure that that this will get rammed through at breakneck speeds. And so I want to just address a comment that the Minister for Human Services made in regards to Bill 45. Trying to allay concerns that the opposition has regarding the application of this bill once it becomes law and interpretation of this bill, where the minister said, the example that was used last night, if someone phones into a talk show threatening to strike, that person under this bill could be charged. Now, the interpretation of this bill is that that person could be charged. But what I find interesting is that the minister is trying to provide assurances that that's an example where the person wouldn't get charged. It's not written in the bill. And so, or I'd like to ask the minister, where in the bill does it say in such an example a person would be safe from retribution or fines? It doesn't. And so I apologize that I cannot take the minister's word at face value, considering it won't be the minister that puts this bill into law or enforces the law once it becomes law. So having said that, again, my frustration thus far, and I believe the frustration of all the opposition, is on second reading, the fact that this bill had a closure on it where, I feel a couple of quick points here. Number one, I know that that is a tool that the government has used in the past. I'd like to point out that it's been used sparingly. But normally, when we look at parliamentary procedures here and even in Ottawa, it's that type of tool is used once a significant number of members have had the opportunity to speak to a reading of a bill, and that there is democratic debate and a healthy debate, as opposed to one or two speakers having the opportunity or opposition members to get up and speak to a bill and then moving immediately into closure. I think Albertans are quite frustrated that their representatives don't have the opportunity to speak, and I'd really like to remind the government that the 87 members in this House represent almost 4 million people, and by stifling two-thirds of the opposition or disallowing them to speak to a reading of the bill is effectively silencing a large number of Albertans, and I believe that this government will hear about it. If not through emails and social media, they're going to hear about it in the 2016 election. Want to move into my second point, Mr. Chair, is that this bill, Bill 45, is unconstitutional. I find it kind of ironic, or maybe not even kind of, I find it ironic, Mr. Chair, that this bill is coming from a supposed human rights lawyer, yet the way that this bill is written, it is in complete violation of our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I'd like to read briefly Section 2 from the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, just to remind all members of the Assembly what those rights are, and then I'll explain how this bill is unconstitutional and then attacks those rights. Everyone has the following fundamental freedoms: freedom of conscience and religion, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including the freedom of the press and other media of communication, freedom of peaceful assembly, and freedom of association. This bill violates 2B and 2D, which again is freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including the freedom of press and other media of communication, and 2D, freedom of association. This bill attacks those freedoms in the sense that public sector workers, and in fact, not just public sector workers, but all Albertans, any Albertan can be charged and fined under this bill if there is a threat of a strike or discussion of a strike. And you know, when I first went through this bill, Mr. Chair, it had some very Orwellian undertones to it, you know, concerns that that this government wants to pass into law and enable really or cause concern for all Albertans. That I mean, what are they going to introduce next? The thought police that are going to be chasing people down if they think about a strike, as opposed to even talking about it to their friends. The fact that, well, it is very, very dangerous, this type of legislation. And again, Mr. Chair, this is a direct attack on the fundamental rights and freedoms of all Albertans, not just our friends that work in the public sector. This essentially is a bill that's designed as a gag order to silence workers and stifle their ability to take action when their health and safety is at risk. And I want to just clarify for many of the members on the other side of the House, often the example of the wildcat strike that occurred in the spring has been cited as an example of why we need this legislation. And you know, what's frustrating, Mr. Chair, is that the government has completely misunderstood what had happened back in the spring. And I, too, can say that I was on that strike line speaking to workers about what preempted them, what was the impetus for them going on strike. And the story is quite fascinating, Mr. Chair, because you've got story after story of workers and employees who worked at the remand frustrated after numerous attempts of speaking with management, of speaking with the government, of trying to get a hold of the minister to address the issues of their concern, of their own health and safety, and that of the inmates because of an improperly constructed brand new remand center. Now, not all of it was improperly constructed, but there were parts of it that posed a direct risk to the staff, workers at the remand, and also the inmates. As the member from Edmonton Centre pointed out, there was glass in this facility that could be smashed with a coffee cup, which poses a huge threat. Now, Mr. Chair, I also want to bring up the fact that for a number of years, I myself worked as a corrections officer at the Edmonton Young Offender Centre. And I can tell you that the people who work in these facilities are not there because of some exorbitant salary or massive amounts of benefits or pension. They're there because they want to make a difference and because they care.
That means Dr. Brown keeps issuing referring.
Now, the challenge is, or I should say not the challenge, but when I worked at the EYOC, you know, I did not feel unsafe in that existing facility. Now, I've been out for quite a few years, so if there are concerns that have come up in the last 15 years, then please excuse me. But my point is that workers in this province need to have the ability to and the channels to take their concerns to the appropriate places, and that they are also addressed. Now, this strike, the wildcat strike, was because of a frustration for months and months of being ignored, neglected, pushed aside when they had real, valid concerns. And so this illegal strike, which, yes, it was illegal, was their last option, their last straw to send a message to this deaf government that there were extreme flaws and concerns with the remand center that were not being addressed. And so they did what they were forced to do in order to protect themselves and the inmates in the remand. And I just want to say on a side note that I found it quite offensive when a member last night tried to compare a strike, a legitimate strike, to riots that occurred after a hockey game. I think it's a gross display of ignorance as far as understanding the purpose of a strike and the reason behind the Wildcat strike versus young people partying too much and taking celebration to an extreme, or the opposite. I just want to point out, and as the member from Edmonton Strathcona so eloquently put it last night, that to spell out to the members in this assembly, what illegal strikes have brought not only our public sector workers, but all Albertans and working people that are thankful for a weekend, for an 8-hour workday, for mandatory breaks, for overtime pay, for safety regulations in a workplace, for minimum wage. All of these things are brought to you by our friends in organized labor. And I would argue that we would not enjoy those rights, whether you're unionized or non-unionized, anywhere in this province or in this country, if men and women didn't stand up and fight for those rights which we now enjoy today. Mr. Chair, examples of civil disobedience that have moved society forward. Let's look at the example of Rosa Parks and the fact that she refused to go to the back of the bus was the impetus for a movement that did bring equality, or some equality, to all people in North America, regardless of color. The fact that there was a period in time, and not too long ago in our history, Mr. Chair, where women and Aboriginal peoples did not have the right to vote. Now, do you think that was just handed over because people had clamored and said we deserve the right to vote? No. They had to take action that at the time was considered civil disobedience in order to gain those rights. Now, Mr. Chair, I'm sure my time is coming to a close. I never seem to have an issue filling the 15 minutes. But the two other issues I just want to talk about is, again, the real purpose of this bill and the fines, which the amount of money, because there has always been fines for illegal strikes, but I would like to make some comparisons between when we have especially companies that break the law and their fines within the province of Alberta versus what this government is trying to impose. So the purpose of this bill, essentially, Mr. Chair, in my view, this is an attack on working people in this province. This is an attack on people's rights. This undermines the rights of workers, of working people, to refuse to work in an unsafe workplace condition. This as well is a bill designed to create a culture of fear and intimidation. More and more, this government is looking like Big Brother, wanting to control, again, not just the actions and words of its citizens, but it begs the question of what's next, Mr. Chair. I really do need to clarify, because this example keeps being brought up by the different ministers, as far as how they negotiated a contract with the teachers. There couldn't be a bigger load of hogwash, Mr. Chair. That contract was starting to be negotiated, but when some locals decided this isn't a good contract, then the government decides to put a gun to their head and legislate the contract. That's not bargaining in good faith. That's not negotiation, Mr. Chair. That's the actions of this government, where they'll ask, and if you say no, they're just going to ram it down your throat anyway, regardless of what you say. Moving on to the fines in this bill, Mr. Chair, the fines for unions, union reps, and even Albertans is grossly disproportionate to their actions. The fact that this bill will will basically fine, and the intention of this, let's be blunt, Mr. Chair, is to fine unions into the ground and to break unions. The government may say this is about safety. If this was about safety, let's go back to the example of the remand centre, then maybe they would have done something about the genuine concerns that the workers had at the remand centre. Who knows best? The people who are in there day in and day out, who are working there, who don't want to put their own lives in jeopardy or at risk, above and beyond, obviously, the risks of working within a remand centre. But it's not just about the workers, Mr. Chair. It's also about their concern for the safety of the very inmates and people that reside in there as well. And so the fact that we had an example of an incident at the remand centre not 2 weeks ago, these concerns that the workers have put forward still are being ignored, and this government is not taking their concerns legitimately. Mr. Chair, I'm going to try to find my notes because I've been all over the place here. So we're talking about disproportionate fines. So the fact that under Bill 45, a union, and I believe the member from Edmonton Strathcona figured it out, that it could be as much as $2.5 million a day, which is an unbelievable sum of money. That's not, I'm not even sure if that number necessarily is accounting for all the individual fines that would go out. Let's compare that to some environmental infractions that have occurred. First and foremost, they're in this province a slap on the wrist for the most part. They're normally a one-time penalty, as opposed to this bill that would continue to fine Albertans, union members, or unions themselves every day that they're on strike. Is quite a difference between the two. So, Mr. Chair, I think Albertans, again, see this bill for what it is. This is an assault on working people. This is an attack on organized labor. And this is a very punitive and heavy-handed bill. And I'm not even sure if the minister believes his own words when he says that this isn't a punitive bill. You look at the amount of fines on individuals, on unions, on workers. You compare it, Mr. Chair, to other jurisdictions across the country, and Alberta is by far there is no other jurisdiction in the country that is trying to punish and ram into the ground its organized labor. In other parts of this country, Mr. Chair, there is a recognition of the value that these workers bring. And this is, this brings me to my concluding point, Mr. Chair, and that's that the level of frustration is rising amongst workers in Alberta when they hear this government get up and say one thing and their actions are the opposite. So they get up and talk about the value of public sector workers, our firefighters, our doctors, our nurses, our healthcare providers, the folks who stepped up during the floods, and then turn around and beat them down with a bill like this. It goes beyond a slap in the face, Mr. Chair. And I think the minister may be delusional if he thinks that the workers that make this province tick, that help and are the reason that Alberta is one of the best provinces to live in, are because of the workers. And when a government introduces a bill like this, it sends them a message of the opposite, Mr. Chair. In our day and age, people are valued, and the level of value is honestly based on one significant factor is on wages. And so, it's insulting to compare the wages that we get in this House compared to many of our public sector union sisters and brothers, and to say, and I realize this next point is going on Bill 46, but to say, well, we took a 1% freeze, so they should too. Well, I'm sorry, but you're comparing apples and oranges, not apples to apples. And if we want to show not only our public sector friends, but workers in this province that we do value them, then
Member, I'll recognize